Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of How to Sell Your Vision. As always, the purpose of this session and this podcast is to bring you successful CEOs, VC partners, angel investors to share with you the insight that will allow you to raise successfully in today's market. And today I'm super excited because I have a good friend of mine and a person who was able to do what many, many founders today are dreaming of, and that is raising successfully in today's market. We have Michael Matias, who is the CEO of Clarity, and he's going to tell us how they are fighting deepfake in the enterprise world. But before I go into it, I would just like to start with congratulating you, Michael, for this incredible seed round of $16 million you just raised. Absolutely brilliant. Congrats on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So, Michael, tell us a bit about Clarity and what you're doing, and then we'll dive into some fundraising tips.
Great. Clarity was founded about 15 months ago to fight deepfakes. We realized that there's a new form of generative AI content that's evolving that is able to take identities, faces, voices, and manipulate them in ways that are not intended. And what that does is erodes trust and our ability to experience in a high integrity, high authentic way our digital communication. Today, we've digitized practically everything from our financial systems to our peer-to-peer communication to our election process. And what deepfakes do is they fundamentally disrupt the way that we can trust this ongoing communication. And so we founded Clarity to provide technological tools to identify what is real and what is a deepfake so that we can maintain high integrity within these communication channels for enterprises and consumers alike.
That's brilliant, super interesting, and super relevant. And I'd like to transition now to the essence of the podcast and give the founders, the other CEOs who are tuning in, the tips they need to do what you were able to do in today's market, because there is a lot of pessimism in the market today. And I hear it from a lot of founders that sometimes they even prefer to wait with fundraising. And then you have a company which is remarkable, 15 months old, coming in, raising a very impressive seed round. It goes to the philosophy that I believe in, that good finds its way to the top. And the fact that you were able to raise that amount is an indication of that. But I would say if you had to kind of pinpoint the main thing that made a difference for you in the fundraising and allowed you to get the funds you need in today's market, what would that be?
Yeah, I think that there's multiple parameters when it comes to fundraising, and it changes per vertical, it changes per entrepreneur, and per problem space. I think that probably the most important piece that we had here was the fact that there's a new disruption that's undergoing, which serves as a very, very unique opportunity, which is pretty rare in the world. There's many different problems that are worth solving, but here we're faced with a situation in which over a very short amount of time there is going to be, and there is already, a pretty significant disruption which is occurring whether we like it or not, and that serves a very unique opportunity for teams that can actually tackle it. So there's a big business opportunity that emerges. Fundamentally, every digital communication channel, every place where digital media lives, needs to go through a verification layer of whether this is a deep fake or not. Now, that is coupled with the complexity of tackling this challenge. And so it's not as simple as building an application or an API. Those are the most fundamental layers of it. You really have to develop deep technology and deep research in order to be able to do what's needed to solve this problem. And so here there's the component of the team. And one of the things that we realized early on when we founded the company was that in order to tackle this, we're going to have to bring a world-class team. I was still at Stanford when we had the idea for Clarity, and we ended up deciding to form it with an R&D center here in Israel because we wanted to bring the best minds in the world that are hyper focused, fast paced, coming from the 80 to 100 units in the Technion and Checkpoint and these organizations. And effectively, when we came to present our thesis, it was, there's a huge market that's opening here. There's an incredible business opportunity which we can't even acknowledge yet in terms of TAM or numbers. We just know it's going to be huge and evolving. We have the right
Right.
team in place to execute on this, not just from the application and product perspective, but from a research perspective as well. And the timing in which we're doing this is also pretty significant because we're approaching this, maybe 1 or 2 years before the market explodes. And so we have a certain amount of time to gear up and develop so that as the market hits sort of this inflection point, Clarity builds the right product and technology so that it all emerges. And that was the core thesis with which we set out. And of course, I have to add an additional layer to all this, is that deepfakes are not a traditional problem when it comes to startups and business opportunities. This is a fundamental problem which touches on our very core stability of our society, of our democracy, of our financial institutions. It is the way we communicate with each other. We're really dealing with trust. And so we also had quite a few investors that, beyond the business perspective, they really do want to solve this problem, and they wanted to be a part of a team that is out there to tackle it.
That's brilliant because in early stage companies, and you tapped on it so eloquently. Your biggest equity is the team, right? When you have the product at its early stages, and the vision is bigger than the product, and the vision is bigger than the ARR, you have to show your team because they are the one who's going to manage it, and the investors are going to buy into it. Um, and I love what you said about the fact that deepfake is so big because there is an element of common sense here. People starting to understand the power of deepfake and the business opportunity. So I love the way you tie them together because it allows to create a story that is very relatable to investors. They can live it and sense it every day, and they can relate to the mission. So, and it's more about the TAM. And I'm glad you tapped on the TAM because we're going to discuss it in a second. There is no TAM for deepfake. And a lot of the times when founders are doing their early stage pitching, they're so focused on the TAM. They want to kind of show this gazillion market size that they are tackling as if this is the business opportunity. And I remember in one of our conversations, he said, I didn't even have a TAM slide. I didn't present a TAM. Walk me through it a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think that there's many ways to think about what a how to navigate through the size of the business opportunity. One way to do that is to present a logical narrative of what is the market potential in terms of total addressable market, total service addressable market, etc. Right? TAM, SEM, SOM. And that is true for, I would say, more mature markets, or when there is a market and you understand the pain point and how much people are willing to pay for these things. That's one way of presenting business opportunity. Another way of presenting it, which is, I guess, more true in cases of new categories and new disruptive categories, is to be able to explain the processes which are going to be disrupted because of what's happening in the world, and how much pain it's going to cause these different industries. So when I ask news organizations, hey, how much money are you willing to pay to detect deepfakes? The response is not necessarily a number, but what you hear instead is, wow, well, this is an existential problem for us, right? This is going to be so fundamental in the way we run our business and the way we survive through the evolution of digital media, that we will pay whatever is needed in order to make this work. When you ask a bank, hey, how much money are you willing to pay in order to verify the identities of your private banking clients and your customers, that too goes back to the more fundamental question that they're saying, wait, if we can't identify and authenticate our clients, we can't do business. We can't do wire transfers. We can't go on these calls. We can't give them the personal interaction. And we can play the same game across multiple industries. And so I don't know yet, and I don't think anybody knows yet, how much money a bank is willing to pay for deepfake detection, because the market is now maturing, right? We have clients, we have customers, we're seeing the initial fruits of the pricing, and our counterparts in the industry are seeing that as well, but it's still growing and it's still maturing. Deepfakes are still ramping up to be the threat that they are. And so when we presented our TAM, if you will, slide, what we presented was the fact that this is going to be such a painful problem for organizations that even though we don't know exactly what number they're willing to pay, and there will be a number eventually, and that it may shift, that number is going to be associated with the amount of pain. That pain is going to be very large, and then you say, and it's going to be at very, very high volume. And so high pain at high volume in a short period of amount of time across many industries, that leads to undeniably a big business potential, which most likely enters into the world of billions in addressable market for a startup.
This is brilliant, really. This is breathtaking the way you're positioning it, because you're right. It's all about the process transformation. And let's be honest, a lot of time when you're trying to figure out the TAM number for your business, you're trying to guesstimate, you're looking at Google, you don't really know what the numbers are, but the way you position that, the size of the pain, the volume of it creates the opportunity. Once you understand that, as an investor, you realize you don't need TAM, because in your head, you can already calculate the growth that you're going to achieve from the startup and the founder who is standing in front of you.
And I think that there's, especially at this stage of the, you have the one assumption that you have to go into it with is that the investor in front of you agrees with you on the most fundamental level that this is going to be painful and this is going to be a disruption, right? And if you don't have that understanding, and by the way, not every investor we spoke to had that understanding. I mean, especially in the early days, 15 months ago, not everybody thought that deepfakes are going to disrupt everything we see and hear, and that's okay. And by the way, from my perspective, I didn't necessarily spend too much time trying to convince them. I think that there are people that I did spend more time to navigate through the more fundamental assertion, but at some point you also have to say, okay, I'm going to focus on those that understand it, that are aligned with me. And I think that we were very lucky and we were very privileged to have an amazing network in our immediate vicinity of investors and advisors that it just clicked. It was, oh yeah, holy crap, I mean, this is going to be huge. This is going to impact my own kids. It's going to impact my own family, my own business. We need this. Society needs this. Let's go. And so that was very helpful.
Yeah, I agree with it 100%, because at the end of the day, when you're looking for investors, you shouldn't convince them about the business. You're looking for believers. If you're there trying to convince people about the business, you're missing the point of finding an investor who is a partner. You're looking for a believer. So I really relate to what you said, that they need to understand it in the fundamental way first. Let's tap into what you just said, finding the right investors. I had an interview or a session just last week about this with another guest on my podcast, who said, look, it's all about finding the right investors. And the dire state of the market brings founders to a state where they spray and pray. They just want everyone to listen in hope to get the right investors, because the market is so down. Walk me through your process of how you targeted the right investors and what made it so successful.
Yeah. First of all, I think that the notion of finding the right investors is a privilege, right? I mean, there's, ultimately, in order for the startup to even exist, you need money and you need funds. And so you as an entrepreneur, if you have a vision and you say, I'm going to do this no matter what, because I truly believe in this problem and I care about it, you're going to take what you can get. And so, and hopefully then you find the investors that then are aligned to also what you need in order to succeed. And I think that also shifts throughout the evolution of the company naturally. For us, when we started the company, the very first thing that we needed was the early believers that are going to give us the motivation, the energy, the optimism, and the excitement. Those were like the first 5 angel investors, right? These are the people that if I ever, need to talk about how cool deepfakes are and how cool what we're doing about, they're going to be that phone call, and they're going to be my biggest champions, and they will be my first reference calls. Then afterwards, we had the second tier of investors, which are more of the professional, I guess, angel investors and small VCs, which are already more tuned to our space. They understand logically how our solution is going to be. They buy into our team, and they're buying into how we're going to tackle this challenge. And the reason why that is important is that I don't need them to just attest to the fact that there is a great problem to be solved, but now I need them to also talk about why they believe our solution works, and they can engage with me in an intellectual, rigorous conversation as to how I'm going about solving this and what are the perhaps pitfalls that I'm not looking out for. And then comes the large VCs, right? And when you talk about the large VCs, they play a really, really crucial role in a startup. First, they sit on your board. They become a partner in the journey. They become a key stakeholder. They hold a large amount of equity in your company. They are decision makers that you need to now engage with on a regular level. Sometimes you have to authorize things with them, and so you want to be mindful of, okay, is this a partner that I want to actually engage with, not on a theoretical or a brainstorming level, but on a practical budget approval level, right? Is this a person that I want to engage with in that front? And then if you have the ability and you have the, I guess, the ability to choose, then ideally you also want the VCs that are also experts in your go-to-market and your customers. So they don't need to be experts in the technology that you're building and the solution, but you really do want them to help you, especially in the seed round, to help you get from your seed to the Series A, which most fundamentally it's all about go-to-market and business. For a company like ours in deep tech,
Right.
there's also elements of proving the technology and winning competitions and being the best in the world. But from a customer perspective, it's the VCs that can actually help you navigate through the early customers, the early pricing. They ask you the tough questions on the use cases. And when we raised our money from Bessemer and Walden, what we really were looking for is this unique combination where Walden brings with it very deep tech understanding, very rigorous. They understand the chains of how information travels. They're highly connected to the infrastructure of hardware and telecommunication and video communication, and they're very, very mature in building large and sustainable companies. And then Bessemer, what they bring is an incredible expertise in building SaaS companies and B2B enterprise, running fast, meeting customers early on and navigating through the bullshit that you may hear and being able to sift through the noise. And this combination for us was really unique, and I'm very, very honored that they're both partners here.
Got it. We're about to kind of hit our time mark, and I always love to end the session with the one last note, learning from our mistakes. If, again, we have a lot of early stage founders who are listening to you right now, what is the one thing that they shouldn't do, that they can learn from your mistake, one mistake that you want to share with them?
I think that what's important to keep in mind is really listening to what the investors are saying, listening and proactively implementing. I think that there's a lot of ideas, and there's a lot of people have their own positions of how the world works and how markets work. So, and you want to listen to all of them, but you have to also have the confidence to be able to navigate between what's important and what's not necessarily important. What do you agree with and what do you not agree with? And I think most importantly, when you don't agree with something, you don't just dismiss it, and at the same time you don't pivot your company completely because of what one investor says. But you give it enough respect to go and then go on a short discovery journey with other investors and other stakeholders to try and either nullify that idea to prove that it's wrong or to prove that it's right. And so I would say by proactively listening, especially on the elements which you don't want to, or you don't like hearing, which negate your idea, taking that negation and then seeing how quickly can you validate whether that negation is right or wrong, and then having the confidence to make a quick decision of whether you're going to entertain that notion or not. And I think that's a critical role, because otherwise you find yourself spreading extremely thin and you're running in many directions and you're losing confidence in what you're about to build.
Powerful. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, my friend. Couldn't be happier for you. This is remarkable. And I have a feeling that this seed is going to grow very, very well. Sounds very promising. Best of luck to you and the team at Clarity.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.